Welcome you to Porch Talk. This is your host, Alan, and we're on the internet calls today down to the New Orleans, Louisiana area, and we have a killer guitar player. He has been in that New Orleans scene for, I guess we'll get into that. You've been down there for a while, Billy, but Billy Iuso, how you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
Good, buddy. And so, man, I just wanted to tell me a little bit about the start of the music journey for you, man. Like tell me about growing up. Was it always music?
Yeah, it was always music. I grew up in a family that my mom and dad split up when I was young, and my mom remarried a lot, like once, but traveled with her new husband. He was in the airline business, so I moved every few years. So music was kind of a best friend in a way. My dog and music were like every time I got somewhere and established some friends, I was moving somewhere else. So I think that's kind of the bond I had with it. And in my high school years, I decided I wanted to move back with my dad so I could have like a one high school experience.
Hmm.
I was living in Texas at the time. From the age of 7, I had moved from the New York area to Ohio, Miami, Texas, and then my mom moved to California, and that's where I split. And I went back up where my dad was up in Connecticut at that time, and I finished high school up there. So
Covered a lot of ground fast.
I did, and it was an interesting identity crisis too. I mean, I'm born at Irish, Italian, New York, couple generations out, and I
Hmm.
was in rural Florida and rural Texas, and so it was an interesting. I see it as a benefit now. I hated it as a kid, so
Yeah. Man, I could and just all those different places, man. I could just kind of see it being a good learning experience when it came to like a great American landscape when it comes to
absolutely.
honing an instrument.
Yeah, it was interesting. But by the time I had gotten back in high school, I was kind of listening to like Deep Purple and like the older heavy rock stuff more than anything, Zeppelin, of course, and stuff like that. But Deep Purple was a big play for me. And then when I got to Connecticut, there was this whole genre of deadheads, and that I, just really kind of fell into. And they took me to my first show up there, and now I've seen over 200 some odd shows with Jerry, and it was, that was obviously very influential on my perspective of music.
Yeah.
Really the interact My dad is a deadhead, but I always that was dad's music, so I kind of just I dug songs, but I never got into it. And then I went with some friends, and just the interaction between the audience and the band was what really just grabbed me. And that was like, whoa, this is it. I always was in the garage faking along to records when I was a kid, but this was where I was like, oh, I want to play music and I want to do what they do.
Yeah,
So
man. And like that whole the way that they would do a show with the wall of sound. I mean, everything that they were brilliant.
looking back on it, they probably were considered crazy at the time, but yeah, now look at everything they've changed in music as far as recording and taping and the concerts and the multiple concerts and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing. And the catalog of music alone that people are making livings off of now, who were,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, I can't tell you how many successful Deadhead cover bands there are in this area, who will
ah,
they'll play, they play every weekend.
yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I have one here that the Ico All Stars, which was a brainchild of me when I was like, when the Dead wasn't super popular in New Orleans. And but I had friends with Willie Green who had played with the Dead and the Neville Brothers, and I was just like, was pulling from those people and just doing a tribute to them. And now that band has taken off. I mean, it's a lot easier to book than my original band. So
How about that? Yeah, and it's also like with that, I played in like a Dead cover band, and boy, the identity of it is once you begin doing that, that's all there is. You can't pull away from it.
whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
It's a
If you're gonna go in
double-edged
there, you
sword.
better be happy about it.
It's my whole career has been a double-edged sword with that. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love the catalog. I do it. I would know I do it well. I am comfortable in that zone, but I have 13 original records, so it's like I have this other side of me that I like to do. And
Yeah.
so sometimes it can be a double-edged sword, but thankfully I do enjoy playing that catalog and it is something I can do. And it also helps me pay my bills. I mean, that's the reality of it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
music's changed a lot. There aren't promoters out there testing the waters with new original bands. It's more of they got to make their nut. So it's easier to market something like a dead cover band than it is an original band. So it's the
Yeah.
way it is.
I could just imagine, like on a weekend night, New Orleans or in that area, just man, people just want to go out and move and
They
probably
do.
just something that they already know. They already know
Yeah,
how to move to it.
it's kind of the way that the new generation of music listeners is. They kind of like to be with something more familiar. I mean, there are people tapping into new music, definitely, and that'll never change. But it's
Yeah.
it's definitely it's a post on Facebook. I went to this type of event instead of I heard this one song and I got to see that band. And that's kind of sad in a way because I grew up in a world where like I just heard one song from a band and I was looking at their tour schedule. So, and then that's how I learned to become fans of all these different things. I mean, I love all kinds of music. I mean, I'm pretty wide open on music, and especially when I perform originals, my original show, the things I dive from are the only thing that I take from the Grateful Dead is the vibe, the improvisation, the freedom. But I like it. They were very original at what they did, even when they covered things, and that's kind of how I feel I want to be. I want to be original when
Yeah.
I take them from somebody else. So
So 13 of your own records.
I think that's what it is now. Yeah,
That's a healthy catalog, man. That'll be prolific.
I'm old.
Well, well, take me back to man, what was it like in that experience when you realized that you could craft your own songs in that first record, man? Tell me about that experience.
Well, I started writing when I was young, in high school, and I had a band that we did a lot of covers, but I always had one or two original songs that had popped out. I mean, I even recorded one of the songs I wrote when I was 16 on this last record. So, and I'm 55 now, so it's kind of crazy to say that. But I the real band that took off for me was Brides of Jesus, and that was about 4 or 5 years after high school, I guess. I was in my early 20s, and I was living in Providence, Rhode Island, living in my rehearsal space, and we were in the middle of downtown where there was three big venues, and we'd get called for every opening act. I mean, I opened for BB King, the Counting Crows. I mean, it crossed the gambit of people I opened for. So it kind of put me quickly into a bigger game instead of just working a little club circuit. I was doing tons of opening acts for big names, um, and that's where we really got bit with the original bug. And we were playing in Birmingham, Alabama, and Johnny Sandlin came out to see us, and he was the producer from the Allman Brothers. He did the first three Widespread records. So he was hot at the time. This is early 90s. He had done Widespread and Aquarium Rescue Unit and stuff like that.
Hmm.
He saw us and he offered to produce my first record. So we went down to Muscle Shoals in Decatur, Alabama, and recorded our first record. And I had Colonel Bruce Hampton on that record, the Muscle Shoals horns. David Hood played bass, who's the legendary Muscle Shoals bass player. And I was, 23, fresh faced, green as could be.
Man,
Um,
you had to be walking in a dream with that.
yeah, it was pretty amazing. We spent like a month there. We lived in a condo, and it was like just, what we dreamed of. And it was great. And, that landed us. We got a pretty good record response. And I was opening for Widespread and Blues Traveler and Spin Doctors and all the bands, Hootie and the Blowfish and Dave Matthews. We were on Dave Matthews' tour when he blew up. We were started that tour in a van, and then he finished it in a tour bus playing theaters. It was pretty amazing. So I had an early start and put me in a position to meet a lot of players that I was just buying their records and people I'm friends with today. I mean, Brides of Jesus opened for the Meters, and that's how I started my relationship with New Orleans. So
Man, that's incredible. So like just to kind of continue walk down the Brides of Jesus. So from
And that was like a funk jam band. Like it was one of the first, which is so prevalent
okay,
all over the place today. I mean, it's a very popular genre now, but back then there was not many of us doing that. You know, I'm we were playing Sissy Strut and stuff like that in the early 90s to people, and they didn't know what it was. It was just, and it was starting to grow. So that was kind of that vibe. And then when I Brides had a lot of band members through the years. People dropped off. There was one core group that lasted the majority of it, and then I kind of splintered along towards the end. And Russell Baptiste joined the band, and that brought me to New Orleans. It was in like '96. I came to New Orleans, and so I
hmm,
tried to limp along with the band for another couple more years. And then I just decided to drop it all. It felt bastardized at that point to me. It was like me just putting it back together all the time. So I started fresh. And at that time I was offered a job working for the Neville Brothers and the Meters as on their production team as stage manager or tech and tour managing. I did all different jobs. So I took a few years and did that with them. And that was very beneficial. I needed a break from being the lead guy and performing, and I learned the other side of the stage. And it was an honor to work for those people. Like I was a fan, and they wanted me to be a part of their family, so I went and did that. And but I missed it. I missed the bug of playing. I was standing on the side of the stage a lot of nights, and it was great. So I finally got back into it, and that's when I kind of went under my own name with Billy Iuso and Restless Natives, um, and I focused a little more on songwriting than just groove and funk at that point too. So to what's led me to now, which I feel like I'm more of a singer songwriter who can jam.
right, yeah.
I
So
mean, I don't know
just
about you, but I'm a fan of the song first and the jam second. Like I love a good jam, but I like it to be connected to something. So
yeah, yeah, like you gotta it's the content of the song needs to be good, then the jam can really
yeah,
do its
kind of like the icing on it for you. But if the
oh
cake ain't
yeah.
good, the icing doesn't matter. So
That's it. Yeah,
you
that's
know,
it. Oh, well, man, just coming from that background, you've lived all across the United States, man. Just a little bit about your personal sound. Uh, how would you sum up the latest record?
the latest record is it was inspired by the pandemic. I mean, when we were all sitting home, I started streaming every Wednesday night. And
I remember
as
that.
Yeah, as form of revenue, and it made me dive back into my old days of open mic nights and stuff like that. And I wouldn't call myself a human jukebox, but in the jam world, I know a lot of songs, and I just started diving back into them. And with the help of iPads and stuff like that, to be able to remember all these lyrics of 300 some odd songs and streaming, I kind of dove back into that world and started finding stuff, my own material, cover material that just felt right. And I wrote a couple new songs and I said, let's just put them down. And so we recorded that record in my house, which was cool. I
Oh, yeah.
brought an engineer that I've worked with a bunch of times, David Farrell. He's pretty famous down here. He worked on many great records over the last 30 years here. And he set up some preamps and Pro Tools rig in my house, and we spread out across the living. We put the drums in the living room, and me and the bass player were in my studio that I'm in now, and set up the mixing board in the kitchen, and we used all the instruments that I have in the house. So that was kind of cool, and it gave it a vibe, and I really wanted to press this on vinyl because I wanted a side A and a side B. So
Hmm.
it has that feel. It has, like I said, there's one song on there that I was 16 when I wrote. There's another one on there when I was 20 when I was wrote stuff that I had recorded with Brides and I didn't like the way it turned out. And I've recently revamped the band to where I have two backup singers now, and I brought
Okay.
that in. So we're a four-piece band, keyboards, drums, bass, guitar. But then I brought two girls in to sing backup, and that surprisingly, you think of backup singers as kind of just fluff in most situations, but from a music standpoint, it freed me up so much to like
Hmm.
not worry about singing all the choruses and to where I could do with other things I could do. And I think it's just blossomed the band. We also really get along great. We're all good friends, and the vibe comes from the stage out. It's natural, it's not forced, it's really fun. And that's just maturity and how long you've been doing it. I can kind of pick people nowadays that I know I'm gonna be able to work with. And
Yeah, and man, that's one thing I've learned, like just singer-songwriter over the years and incorporating more people into the act, is it is that idea of I figured out that I can step into the creative side of the project that I haven't been able to get to yet because I've been trying to be everything.
yeah.
And then you finally free yourself up a little bit and it just makes everything better when you stop trying to be everything.
And I mean, I'm only everything because it's out of necessity. I mean,
Yeah.
I would love to have people on the team making the phone calls, driving the vehicle, all that stuff. But this out of
Hmm.
necessity, we do this. It's pretty much on me to get it all done. But like you said, just those little simple things that I don't have to worry about anymore has really shown. And I'm proud of the new record. I think it's some of my best work, and I hope I'm only getting better. I think the way I look at my albums, I don't really listen to anything before Tripping Over Dragons record, and that to me has like four good songs. And then the next album after that has about six good songs. The one after that's got eight, and now I feel like we got one that kind of has a solid, good 10 songs on it. So it's just a process.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So like just back with the meters,
Mhm.
working with them on stage, moving down to New Orleans, like what are some of the biggest lessons? I mean, we talked a little bit about, you know, being on the other side of the stage and not performing. Man, what else would you say that they kind of taught you maybe about New Orleans?
Slow down. Slow
Yeah.
down is key. Over the years, I mean, I'm very close with George Porter. We've worked together as players, band members. I've worked for him as his tech. I've worked for him as his tour manager. We just have a really unique relationship. And of course, Art Neville too, who's passed. I was very close with him. I mean, I just kind of watched their interactions and the way they work, and to the sheer joy of it, to try to make sure that you put that in it every night and forget that you're not playing out there to perform, to get a record deal or whatever. You're just sometimes up there because you played an instrument, because the pureness of picking it up when you're a kid and enjoying it, carrying that through after 50 years of playing the same thing is important. And the respect on stage, using your ears is huge. A lot of players are schooled. A lot of people are learning on YouTube these days, but one thing you can't be taught is how to interact with players on stage, and it's really listening and the respect you give, and that's something I learned definitely from those guys.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. That
And you don't have to be
playing
the
by ear.
right, but you don't have to be the best player either. You just got to go know what you do well and do it right at that point. Like I don't consider myself a guitar player of the standards of most of the cats in this town. Like there's guys out here that just smoke me, but I'm confident in what I do and know where I fit in to make it work. And that's important. I think identity and knowing who you are is key.
When I spend time with your music today, and it may have not have always been this way with you, but like with the sound that you have now, it has that New Orleans feel to it. So I feel like you've really let the culture and the sound of that town kind of envelop your guitar style. Has there ever been like times to where you had that New York style and you felt like you were embellishing everything and rolling it all together?
I don't know. I don't know if my style has even changed at all. I've gotten better, yes, but I don't know. My style, I've always drawn from the same people as far as what I wanted to sound like.
Yeah.
Tonal wise, I've always gone for like the Gilmore or the Santana sound more than the Jerry sound. The Jerry stuff comes natural to me because over the years it's been so ingrained in me. Now I find it natural to play some of that stuff. But it used to be I couldn't play a solo in a Jerry song for the life of me for years. I had to stay pretty blues based for a long time. But I opened for BB King in the 90s, and it was the first night I ever played lead guitar by myself. I've always been a second guitar player when I was younger. I love playing rhythm. Rhythm's fun to me. And BB King just told me get a good sounding amp, and when you hit a wrong note, smile and slide up a fret. And I'm
Yep.
still using that advice today. I mean, I hit a wrong note, I just go one fret up, I'm good.
There was I don't remember the bassist that done it, and he was just talking about playing the bass and how there's not a wrong note, kind of like to what you were saying. He's like, even if I hit a wrong note, as long as I'm within the vibe of the song, it don't matter. You ain't gonna catch it as long as I'm smiling and moving on.
I mean, they're really, I mean, I'm people argue with me on this, but there's no rules in music. I
Right.
don't, I, I don't believe there's rules in music. There are players out there that believe there is a structure you need to stay in within, but I mean, come on. Did Miles Davis have rules? I mean, and we look at him as this, so it I if you can tell when it's not working, and that should be the only rule. That's it. If this doesn't work, move on.
Right.
So
Yeah.
but you look back at your own stuff and you're like, well, that was, I mean, I'll be honest, but most of my records, some of the mistakes are my happiest points of the records.
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Happy little accidents. Yep.
yeah, for sure.
Well, cool, man. We've talked a little bit about your influences. Is there any that we haven't covered yet? You talked about Santana and Jerry Garcia and those
I mean,
cats.
I take from a lot of things. If you ask me what I listen to, 80% of the time, it's reggae. I love reggae, but it's
Okay.
not something you hear elements of it in my music, but I don't feel comfortable playing reggae because I'm not a reggae musician. I can skank along in a a steer it up type of way, with a jam band sound. But as far reggae is just one of those things that I listen to for the enjoyment. And I go deep with the artists there. I love classic country. I like George Jones and Willie Nelson and that type of vibe. Um, I'm a huge Jason Isbell fan. I love his lyrics, and I
Mhm.
like the way he paints a picture with his songs. And I'm all over the place on music. It's just about as long as it has soul, I can pretty much dig it. I love Cuban music. There's just a lot of different things I dig, and there's a lot of stuff I cannot play. I mean, I'm not a schooled musician. I taught myself with a record player and a guitar, or learning next to my buddy. I never studied it. I never like learned the scales properly, and I wish I did. It took me till I was in my 40s before I started dabbling in real scales and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. Like I said, if it wasn't fun and it didn't feel right, then it wasn't working for me. I got into music so I could have fun. It wasn't.
It seems like there's levels to it when you're learning your instrument, especially when you start by ear. It's you can go as far as your buddy is, but until you start unlocking like the scales and a little bit of theory, you're gonna hit roadblock after roadblock.
Absolutely. Yeah, you are. And I mean, I feel like the way I learn is a little dyslexic because I use these and I do it when I'm figuring out tips at restaurants and everything else. I have this way of thinking that's not school book. And like you said, I've learned theory and scales on accident, finding it in a song that I had to learn a part for, not really
Hmm.
sitting nailing the scale in my head. You know what I mean? And I still can't go on a fretboard and tell you all the notes. I mean, I can think about it, but it might take me 30 seconds when I get in an unknown territory. But the biggest thing that got me confident and good was I was pretty fearless, and I've done so many artists at large where I got thrown in with people. Of course, George Porter. I mean, you sit on a stage with him, you better just hold your own. And so over the years, I've learned to find my spots and just be confident what I do. I did get to sit in. I was the first person to ever play on a Steel Pulse original. They decided
Whoa,
they were going on Jam Cruise, so they were starting to test the waters with guests. And they played in New Orleans, and I've been friends with them for years. And they asked me to play on roller skates. I was the first person to play on a Steel Pulse original, and that was to me that's a highlight. I played with Wyclef one night. That was a lot of fun.
that's
Just
incredible, dude.
I like some different things like that. I've been blessed. I mean, I've played with Fred Wesley, Bill Kreutzmann, Paul Barrere. I mean, I get the list goes on. I've been blessed when it comes to that. It's been, and I'm still a fan. So it's like geeking out sometimes, but still.
Yeah, I can imagine and like what that like you said with holding your own, like what that has done to where you're kind of outside of your box of like what you like to play, like such as the blues or more of a jam band and be like, oh, we got a little jazz here. I gotta do a little improv.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you fall, sometimes you don't. I mean, sometimes you learn something new. I mean, I like that challenge. That's a New Orleans thing. Everybody here is pretty competent. I mean, you walk into a bar to your friend's gig and they're like, "Come on up," and you're like,
Yeah,
"What are we playing?" "Oh, it only has 7 chords." Like, okay, so
yeah, yeah.
you get good at it. And I mean, I'll toot our horn down here. I think we're the best at it. I think that there's great players all over the country, but on a sit-in situation, cold, New Orleans got all y'all beat. I'm sorry.
I don't know if I disagree with that. I mean, that's just like when it comes to like the music scene in New Orleans, I mean, that's really what I kind of think about. It's that jazz, improv, just hop in, but you better bring it.
Yeah. Or you're
I
not going
mean,
to get called up again.
right. Yeah, that'll be it.
Yeah.
And and I haven't played a show in New Orleans or really adjacent to the area, but I couldn't imagine like singer-songwriter or if you didn't have the right sound trying to get into that scene. Like I see the musicianship as just such a different level down there.
We unfortunately don't have enough venues anymore. There was a time where you could work and everybody could come and have a little shot, but venues have slimmed down and it's harder to make a buck in the business. So obviously that people don't take as many risks,
Yeah.
but it's still here. It's changing now. I mean, there's definitely a new vibe. It grows deep here, so it'll never completely change, but it's changing a little bit. And I'm also getting older, so I'm also that guy get off my lawn. So I mean, I don't know exactly if it's changing that much or I'm just the old grumpy guy saying, "Oh, these kids today." But I'm kind of in the middle of the pack down here. This is one of those places where you could still be almost 70 in your mid 70s and relevant musically, and that's a rare
Yeah.
thing in the community. So
Yeah. What I would say maybe Austin or Nashville kind of carries that maybe,
yeah, yeah.
but something like that is tough to get up in years and for the scene not to turn over on itself.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's and we're coming right into Mardi Gras here, so things go back into that yearly function, where like Mardi Gras and Jazz Fest are kind of always the same every year with the way it changed. I mean, obviously Jazz Fest has grown immensely, but um, it is that when you live here, that this is your time, you kind of gotta hustle and then come July, hit the road or something because there ain't nothing here.
Well, man, with your travels and the places you've been, could you imagine setting up shop anywhere else but New Orleans?
No, this is so naturally my home. Um, and that's something I searched for my whole life, I guess. And unconsciously, when I came here, I toured here multiple times before I lived here and played and being friends with New Orleans musicians, I always kind of had a little in, but not until I lived here. And I've been here since January '96. And I was brought here by the Meters and the Nevilles and stuff. So I kind of got the key to the city early. Um, but now looking back at it, I mean, look, 55 years of life, I've been here 26 or something like that. That's a lot of my life. My 3 kids are from here. I've been lived in the same house for 20 years. So no, I can't imagine it. The next stop obviously is the Caribbean. So, that's I can't imagine saying, "Oh, you know what, I'm going to go move to, New York or Ohio or something." No, this is it.
Yeah, I got you. What
Maybe
about
Colorado, like far away from people, and when I get in that stage, but no, this is it. I'm not a cold weather guy either anymore. So
oh brother, dude, I thought I was, and then a couple weeks ago it got down and like to the teens, and I was like, am I?
we got 28 here too last week, and it was like, oh my goodness. And you're in Mississippi, so the house
Yeah.
is. It doesn't matter how much heaters you have on; it's still cold. It's
Yeah, it just ain't made for that.
no, you're wearing hoodies in the house and gloves, and I mean, Yeah, it's been crazy. And today is in the 70s, so go figure.
Yep. It's just beautiful day. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly, man.
I haven't been to
What
Mississippi in a while. I used to play there quite often, and it's kind of like I haven't been up there in a while. It's weird.
Monson, who connected you and I, who put me on
Yep.
you,
Yeah, I
we
actually
had
had to make sure my beard was looking good today.
I I I think that that's what kind of respurred everything is you had recently ordered some balm
Hmm.
and I just happened to be there and he was like, "Man, when are you gonna get Billy on the show, man? I've been wanting to hear his story." He's like, I've known the guy for a while and I've always just wanted to hear his story." And I was like, "Let me reach back out to him because he said he would do it in the past."
Yeah, I don't have a problem doing that. I mean, I'm from the world. Trust me, I mean, musicians, we have an ego. There takes an ego to get up there, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty regular. I like to talk to the there's some guys that just don't do those things and stuff. I don't see that. The one thing I've always loved about musicians is when I met these guys that I put on this pedestal, when they were just as cool as your next door neighbor or down to earth. I was like, now that's the guy, I aspire to be as a musician. I kind of want to be,
Hmm.
but you got to know your worth too. I mean, you got to have a little bit of an ego and swag to kind of ask for what you need when you're playing and get the type of situation you want. So it's a fine line to walk. But I mean, yeah, and you guys, the Munson guy has been great. I mean, I just reached out randomly. When I grew I've always had a beard, but I grew it out to this now, and
Hmm.
and I was like, man, I got to step it up. So those guys hooked me up, and I got my beard trimmed at a local joint here, and they were carrying their stuff, and
Oh
I
yeah.
tried and I reached out to them. I said, man, I love this stuff, and if I find something I like, I'll tell people, and I did, and they've been so kind to me, and so it's kind of cool. I told them I'd come up and play at some point. I'd be down to do that if we can make it work. So
That's what I was gonna say, man. Like whether it be at Munson and Bros or at the Columbus Art Council, man, I would love to have you up here one weekend to play for us.
yeah, I would love to do that. I would definitely be down to do that.
I mean, I would love to see you in Clarksdale with some of those cats, you know.
That would be cool. That'd be real cool. I got lucky last year. I went to Puerto Rico to play a gig, and I the budget didn't have me bringing anybody. It was like I was either going to do it solo or whatever. And I went online and searched some players, and I found a percussion player and a piano player, and we could barely communicate. Well, they spoke English better than I speak Spanish, that's for sure. And but musically, boy, that was so much fun. And the world that they come from and their take on my music was so, oh man, it was great. So I love being thrown into those mixes. I would love to come up and play with like the real blues cats who.
Yeah, friend of mine, he just moved back to Clarksdale from Texas. He's originally from France, but
Oh wow.
first person that he about met when he got here in California was Shooter Jennings.
Oh, interesting.
And so that eventually led him to the Texas and Oklahoma scene. And
Hmm.
then he became enamored with the Texas blues, and that would lead him to Mississippi. And now he's kicking it at Clarksdale, getting a true Mississippi blues experience.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. I kind of followed I mean, I went where I wanted to learn from when I was young, like that's kind of,
Hmm.
I mean, you can't really learn it till you're in it, or it's easier to learn it when you're in it. You can do it, I guess.
Yeah, dude, and I like that Mississippi River. I just think there's something about it, and I mean, New Orleans sitting right there at the end of it before it spills out into the Gulf, and even talking about BB King up in Chicago with that style of blues, like just everything that you're exposed to. I blame it all on that river, man. There's something in the water for sure.
Yeah, I mean, throughout history, water has really brought all the cultures out of things. If you think about it, I mean, port cities in general, food, I mean, everything is around how the water moved things, and it's important. And that's one of my other passions. I love to dive. I love the water. I mean, I spend a lot of
Oh
time in
wow,
the Caribbean. I love that's my when I was a little kid, I wanted to be either a rock star or a marine biologist. So
kind of doing a little bit of both.
I mean, Miami Dolphins are my favorite team. I mean, I'm just like I always pick things because of the water. So
Yeah.
I'm also Aquarius. So,
Well, dude, like Tell me a little bit about that, like the scuba diving and all that. You ever had any kind of close encounters or
No, no, I'm pretty timid when it goes to scuba diving because of the ear factor. I don't like to go, more than
all the
40 to
pressure?
50 feet. Yeah. No, but I've done it. My wife and I do it together at times, but I've done it for God, I've been doing it for a long time, since my early 20s. And there's just, the Caribbean's full of great spots, and you don't
Yeah.
have to be a crazy diver to see some beautiful stuff. I mean, my son and I did a shark dive in Bahamas. That was really epic. And he was like, God, I guess he was about 11 at the time. We're
Whoa, the
in the
balls on that
water with
guy.
like, yeah, we were in the water with probably about 30 or 40 black tip sharks, about 4 to 5 foot. It was,
Whoa.
but the fear wasn't there, man. When we were underwater, it was wild. It was just so cool. And they had a kind of controlled environment in a way. They drop a bait bucket to the bottom and you sit above them and kind of watch them. But they come up, they swim quickly, fast in front of you. It was pretty intense. I'd like to do that again. That was pretty fun.
Yeah,
So
dude, just a little bit about the Caribbean. I mean, how would y'all fall in love with that spot in the world? I mean, apart
I've
from
been
its
going to
beauty.
Jamaica for
Oh,
years
have you?
because of reggae. I mean, as a kid, I went there when I was like 18. That was one of my first vacations. I took myself somewhere. And I've been going back and I brought my family and they love it. And we've been going to grill for the last 10 to 15 years and we've kind of built up a family of friends there. Um, I mean, we got close to buying a place there. We were like almost did it. And I love it there. I love the pace of the people. I would say the people are the biggest draw for me. They're a very real culture, like they're upfront, face to face type of vibe. There's no,
Mm-hmm.
about it's about daily events, not planning for the future. It's more of like, what are we going to do today? And we'll deal with tomorrow when tomorrow comes type of vibe. And,
Yeah.
that's a breath of fresh air. I mean, it
I
live here.
I had the opportunity to go down there and like everything you just described, I would call it's just that island life thing. I mean, because that's all that you really can control. You can't
That's
really,
it.
I mean, a hurricane might blow us away tomorrow. I mean, we just gotta enjoy the day.
Yeah. I mean, I just like it there. I love the pace. I like the food. I like the people. I obviously like the music. I could easily, like I said, that could easily be my next place of living. If
Right
I
on,
could, if
brother.
I can pull it off, I would do it.
I wanted to do three more questions and we'll walk out the door.
All right.
Billy, like someone who is 15, 16, 17 years old, just picking up a guitar, man, what would you say to them?
Mm, I do it for the love. Do it for the love of it. Don't get pressured by all the other aspects of it. Do it
Mhm.
because you like to do it.
Yeah, that's it's kind of like that Mark Rubin approach. I heard like a short from his podcast, and he was talking about the difference between it being art and commerce. Was even the approach of you writing a song. If you're doing something for yourself, that's art. If you're doing it for someone else, that's commerce.
Yeah.
And he was like, you got to keep it real in the end of the day.
I think I mean, it's not an easy road. It really is not. And I don't know. My concerns are with the young people is that there's not much of a road left to really pursue it. I'm starting to see a change. You're starting to see musicians do like my son took a songwriting class from an artist that he liked, and you're starting to see that's another way of them to survive in the new thing. Because I mean, when I was in the 90s, I was getting mailbox money. Like, I was getting,
Hmm.
I didn't have the catalog I have now. I had like, and I would get somewhere between $200 to $500 a month in the mail. Now I'm lucky if I see that in a whole year. And I have a triple the catalog I had back then. So the streaming thing has crushed the income flow on selling your product. I mean, I make more money off t-shirts than I do music, which is kind of sad, but it's a fact on the road. You
Yeah.
know, so I worry that it's so frustrating to try to do it. I mean, and like pressing, nobody's buying CDs anymore. They were an affordable way to press your product. You could get 1,000 CDs for $1,200. Now you press vinyl, it costs $3,000 for 200 vinyl. I mean,
Yep.
it's just so hard to get your music out there. And then again, it's easier because you do have the streaming. So if you know how to work that, and hopefully the young generation will figure out a way to make it more lucrative for them. But it's frustrating. And I worry about, like I said earlier, the promoters always going for the sure shot. Because back when I was growing up, there were guys who were working, and there was a guy at Tipitina's back when I was young named Sonny, and he went later on, worked at the House of Blues, and then he retired. But he took risks. I could call Sonny and I could say, look, I know I'm not going to pack the room, but I got a good band. Put me in front of somebody, and he would do it. And he'd give you, $400 or $500 to make it worth your while, so you could do it. And
Hmm.
then the fact that hotel rooms are $200 instead of $40 nowadays. I mean, there's all these logistics that make it so hard to tour. I kind of feel like I was in the last generation that could do it on a shoestring budget. We would go out, and the frat scene was big back then. Nowadays it's DJs. I mean, I would have one frat gig on a Thursday or Friday, and then I go play the clubs Saturday, Sunday, or whatever.
Hmm.
And the frat gig would pay for the trip, and that was a way for us to keep rolling in the Southeast back then. And there's not a scene like that in the Southeast anymore. I mean, I played Proud Larry's 100 times, and all those places because I had a frat gig at University of Mississippi that weekend or something that could put me in Proud Larry's in front of the kids that would talk about us. You know what I mean? So
Oh, dude,
I don't know
yeah.
if that scene still exists. I don't think it does. Makes it harder on the younger musicians, but I have faith that they'll figure out something, a way to do it. I mean, it might be just like we're doing this right now. I mean, so the music can't be stopped fully.
It can't, and like, man, just with like the streaming services such as your Spotify or Apple, and they do not pay well, but uh, you do get exposure to an audience you may have never gotten before.
Sure.
I don't know if that outweighs the bad. I don't think it outweighs the bad. But it is more exposure, but it just the dividends don't never come in.
It's
And
hard because I'm for me, I'm I learned how to do this business one way, and then after the streaming, you had to learn to do it a different way. After the pandemic, you had to learn to do it another way. And I only have so much bandwidth of learning how to operate OBS to stream every week, and how do I get on playlists for Spotify? I mean, it is like, it's out of my world. I feel like a
mhm.
dinosaur there. So, I don't know if it's, like you said, I have Spotify. I hate that they don't pay me anything, but I have to be up there because if I'm not, that's how people are listening. So,
Yep, that's it. And also like to your point, man, one of the last bands that I was in, I remember we would go do a coaster tour. We would do uh Gulf Shores and then Orange Beach in a weekend and do on a Friday and Saturday do three shows and on Saturday do, a double header.
mhm,
And we couldn't afford a hotel. We were sleeping in cars or going out to the parks
yeah,
and like you couldn't enjoy yourself. 'Cause I mean you didn't have your money was like it was gas and like just a little money in your pocket.
yeah,
And at
absolutely.
this and at this point you're like, what I mean, this this couldn't have always been how it was.
Well, I mean, if you know, it'd be fine if we all stayed single and didn't have kids and blah blah blah, and life hit us, and we could just ride in the van forever and and eat at
Hmm.
the soul food restaurant in the next town. That would have been great. But as you grow and you want, I don't want to sleep next to this guy anymore who plays keyboards in my band. Like we've done all that, and I'd never take it back. It was a great experience, but that's where it's at still. I mean, I'm still getting offers that were the same in the 90s. Like, and it's kind of like, you know, inflation didn't hit this business, when it comes to getting money.
Hmm.
You know, it's tough. And it took me a while. Like I finally, a few years back, I just said, I'm 50 years old. I have to just start telling people no to things instead of wanting to take the gig for money I really didn't think was worth it. But
That was
so,
that was funny that we were just talking about that at the open mic. We were doing a couple of the songwriters would kind of get together during the breaks and just talk. And just talking shop about the craft, and I don't think we do it enough. It's one I'm glad the show exists, but uh, we were talking to a younger guy and like just giving advice, and one of the guys in the group said it. He was like, "Man, I think 90% of the people will tell you this, and I think they're wrong. Don't take every show.
for
Say
sure.
no. It's okay to say no."
It's okay to say no. It took me forever to figure that out, though. I will say that I did it too long, um, and it was a tough pill to swallow because there was a drought there for a minute, you know. But now I will say that when I work, it's usually under my terms, and I'm happy about doing it, and it feels good, and
Hmm.
that reflects in the music too. So, you know, if I'm feeling good, my music's going to feel good. So, and that's important. And I'm happy I did it because now I'm kind of at a point that I only work maybe once or twice a month now, which is
Yeah.
different for me. Like it's kind of feels weird, but on the other hand, when I do work, it's worth it, and I'm usually getting paid. And in the long run, it's kind of the same money. You know, I mean, I just make it quicker. um,
Right. In one go.
and I mean, still, you know, it's you know, I'm still, you know, I'm pretty normal cat. I'm living just above the poverty level. I'm lucky to own a house, but I don't have a big savings. I don't drive a new car. You know, I make decisions based on financial still at 55 years old. And that's not something I expected, the 20 something Billy expected at all. It's been a hard road and it continues to be hard, but I wouldn't turn back now. So that brings me all the way back to what you said about the young kids. You got to really know what you're getting into. I mean, if you really want to go for it, it is a passion, and passion has to drive you because there are some droughtful times, and then there's some way high times, you know. So it's something to balance. And but the kids today, the younger generation, boy, they got so many great tools. There's such good players out there. Like these young kids are just crushing it. I mean, there's so many good players out there, and my son, for example, can play bass, drums. His natural interest in drums, but guitar, keyboards, and he's
Oh, he's
better
all
than
over.
he's fantastic. But he chose the teaching route, which is I'm glad, you know, and he's a great teacher, and he's a fantastic musician. And my other son, or the younger one, he doesn't really play music, but he does. He fiddles around at home. He's got a guitar and piano, and he's got a fantastic ear. And like so, these kids today, they got these tools that are really making it easier for them to really grasp on. Like, you know, theory was boring when I was a kid, man. But now, like, if I had YouTube to kind of have some hip
Hmm.
show me a song that I already like, you know, man, I would have been all over it too. So, you know, so just be passionate about it and try to keep it real in a day and age when things aren't so real anymore.
Well, Billy, do you have a website or is there a social
Yeah.
media that you're more active on? Where can people keep up with you about where you're playing and or if they want to support you, go to Bandcamp, what can they do?
Well, I don't have a band camp, which I everybody keeps telling me I should. So I'd probably gonna look into it. But yeah, billiiuso.com. And then you know, search me on Facebook. I have a business site and a personal site on Facebook. And then on Instagram, I'm up there as well. And I like Instagram because people don't argue about stuff and it's just a lot of pictures, and I kind of
Yep.
like the vibe of that better to me. Um,
Yeah.
you know, I have all of them to I have Twitter, not that I use it much, or X, sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can
Whatever it
find,
is.
I mean, there's only, as far as I know, there's only three Billy Iusos in the world: my dad, me, and my son. So you'll
Well,
find it. You'll find me.
well, right on, dude. Well, last question walking out the door is did I miss anything that you would like to cover? And if not, what was your favorite part of the conversation?
No, I don't think you missed anything. I mean, I'm kind of, I can talk and like to converse, but I'm not chatty. So you kind of brought out a lot out of me today, and I think I got it across. I just kind of like shooting the shit about the state we're in musically now. I don't think people really realize how hard it is to be an artist in this day and age, um and to stay true to your art
Hmm.
is hard and soul sucking at times. And I like to talk about that. I like people to know how much goes into it. So when you get to a door and someone says $10 cover, you don't go, what? You know, it should be $30. It should be $40. I mean, well, you don't get it. It's a lot of work. We're not just up there playing guitar for an hour. There's a preparation that goes into this. I mean, each gig probably I spend at least a week's time on each gig, coming up with a set list, working out the songs I want to do, setting up a rehearsal phone call schedule, just all the little things that go into just playing that 90-minute set. And it's, you know, without a team. So that's the way it is.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're your own agent or manager. You're your own roadie 'cause you're
Well, I'll
loading
be
and
I'll be
unloading
honest.
all the equipment.
My wife is my manager
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, you got some help.
in life and business. So
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, but I
So
mean, like for a lot of
I didn't
people
know.
though, I mean, you play every part.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it is like that. And you don't turn it off. It's hard to turn it off. I mean, the one thing now that I'm not working every week, I do spend time like really working on my set lists. I used to just go up there and play songs, and now I'm planning set lists, but making sure they feel spontaneous. So, and that takes some task work to do, and I'm
Yeah.
blessed to still be able to do it though.
I like building a roller coaster. Like
Yes,
fast, slow, happy, sad, like just to keep everything moving.
I'm all about it. I'm all
Yeah,
about it too.
I don't want to spend too much time making you sad, or I don't want to spend too much time going happy go lucky. Keep it
I'll
kind of
I'll send you a link of our most recent show at the Maple Leaf. They did a stream.
okay.
And I don't usually look back on those too often. I'll peek at them to see how they sound. But this one was really kind of, the engineer did a nice job. It sounds good. It kind of, the first set is just me and my band. That really gives you the element of what we do. And you can check it out. And I'll send you the link and you can share it with your people and all that too. So
Right on, dude. Yeah. That'll be good. I was going to ask you if if I could use a little music at the end to
sure,
kind of
you're more than
show
welcome
people.
to. Yeah, I like to make money off my music, but I want to share it. That's why I created it to be
Yeah.
shared. So yeah, please
Yeah.
do
Right
share my.
on. Well, Billy, thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.